track for getting everything in by the deadline.
Gotcha. Okay, so FAFSA is federal. You do one, but you put all the schools that you're applying, and it's free to fill out.
Absolutely. If you go onto any website and they try to charge you, please exit out immediately.
Okay.
In no way should you ever pay money. The CSS profile, on the other hand, through College Board, depending on your financial situation, that one does cost money. And that one does cost money per university you send it to as well.
Okay.
It's still one application.
Now, what is the CS? Kind of dig into that one just a little bit.
I always say it's the FAFSA on steroids. It asks you still use the same tax year that you use for the FAFSA. I always recommend, if you're going to do both of them, if your school requires it or you just want to do both of them, do them simultaneously. So complete one, then go to the next one.
Okay. It's
going to ask you the same information. The CSS profile just goes a little bit deeper into some asset questions, with the new FAFSA that we can touch on in a little bit.
Okay, so there's... keep going.
It does ask a little bit more detailed questions about assets and things like that now. But typically the CSS profile, it'll ask you about your home value and like what debts you have and how much you owe on things and all of these different items, whereas the FAFSA does not ask those types of questions. For us at Chapel Hill, we personally use that to see if you're eligible for any kind of institutional grant. You have to have need based on your profile to be considered for any university grant. Now, that doesn't mean you have to have need for scholarships. That's a little bit of a different situation with us. But to be considered for university grant in general, you have to have a CSS profile on file, and we look at that number to see if you're eligible for any university-funded grant.
University-funded.
Yep.
Grant. Okay. So we got the we're talking FAFSA.
Yeah.
All right, and then we got the CSS. Not if you're a techie out there, not to be confused with CSS coding and HTML and all that good stuff. The CSS profile was that college something.
It's on College Board.
I see what I did there. It's on College Board. So
it just hit me.
college something. So the CSS profile, the FAFSA, and you just said a word there that I'd like some clarification on for myself here. Is so what's the difference between a scholarship, a grant, and a loan?
Well, the similarity between a scholarship and a grant is it's money you don't pay back.
Okay.
A loan is money loaned to you, so that is something you do pay back. Scholarships and grants are going to be different wherever you go. The only thing that's going to stay consistent is the Pell Grant, which is a federal program. So from your FAFSA, if you're eligible, the Department of Education will give you a Pell Grant. The amount varies depending on your situation. But outside of that, it's really up to schools to determine like their scholarship awarding process, if there's additional applications for those. So whatever school you're looking at, you definitely need to look into what their policies and procedures are for those. At Chapel Hill, your admissions application is your application for all the scholarships at the university as well. So there's no additional, unless you're interested in like Moorhead Kane or the Robertson Scholarship, which isn't handled by our office. They have their own folks with that. So we will still put it on your financial aid award if you are one of the few and very lucky people selected for those. But for us, you have to be an incoming first-year student. So no transfer students, anything like that. Incoming first-year student, first degree seeking, and whatever your application is for the university is what's being considered for your scholarship. So it makes it super easy, because as working in the high schools, I know that there are some students that fill out hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of scholarships. So having the ability to just put in a application, super easy to not have to think about something else.
See, I was one of those kids. So very, very similar, a little bit different background, but a similar background, where, my parents didn't have enough money just to send me straight to school, to any school I wanted. So, if I wanted to dream big and go somewhere, then we had to figure out how to collect those funds and figure out the whole FAFSA thing. And luckily, I'm so blessed to have a wonderful mother who knows how to find information. She might, not know it exactly, but she knows how to find it. And throughout that process for my sister and I, she was able to figure out how to do the FAFSAs, figure out how to, work through that whole process of applying to schools and all that. And, from my perspective, I'll give the people a little bit of that is, she was able to figure out ways to do these applications and get assistance with the applications, because there's a fee to some of them. And for some of them, we were able to do for free or figuring out just different scholarships to apply for. So one of the things that she actually does for some kids, and she lives in Birmingham, Alabama, Pleasant Grove, Alabama. And we have an organization called the C6 Foundation. And one of the things that we really strive on is this whole concept of college readiness. And she helps some of the mentees of the program kind of work through those different things. And, through my sister and I, she was able to figure out that there's a scholarship for any and everything. Mm-hmm. There's a scholarship for any and everything. Now, whether you get it or not is, that's variable. You have to apply for them. Right. But, you think about every one of your big companies in the country, in the world. When I say every, I mean every. Mm-hmm. Every company, from your Walmarts to your IBMs to the Colgates to Procter & Gamble to Delta Airlines. Every one of them has a scholarship of some sort, right? You just have to apply for them. Yep. And a lot of the applications, which you were talking about, a lot of the applications are very, very similar. It's just like the FAFSA and the CSS, right? Mm-hmm. It's, you have to write the essay, fill out the boxes. You write the same essay, just change the, thing. And we had this formula. And so we would just be applying the scholarships. And of course, I did not get all of them, but I got a lot of them, which helped me land at NC State. Helped me land and be able to afford to go there with a relatively low debt. And one of the reasons we're having this conversation now is because what I have realized is not everyone has a mother like mine. Yep. Right. Not everyone has a parent. And not saying that any parent is wrong or bad. It's just a knowledge level. She just has an affinity for finding information. That's just what she does.
Yeah, your mom could work for this. Yeah, she'd be like wonderful intel.
Yeah, she just finds information. That's just, but not everybody has that same.
I mean, that was me. Yeah. Like my parents, they were like, we want to help you, but we just don't know how. And I really had to kind of fend for myself and figure out the questions to ask and all of that. And I didn't ask enough because I have a whole bunch of debt, but
yeah, and that's another part of it. Once again, going back to the conversation of the 2-year versus 4-year, we were saying, just the general cost of it, whether you can find the money or not. The general cost of a 2-year is going to be less than a 4-year in general.
Absolutely.
Yeah, in general. And so, whether we're talking about the FAFSA, and so one of the reasons I wanted to talk about the difference between a scholarship grant versus a loan is because you can get the aid, like you said, the Pell Grants or whatever, but you can also, get the loans, the subsidized loans inside of that package. And I think it's important that they're not necessarily bad. They're not.
Yeah, I have to debunk that all the time.
Yeah. They're not necessarily bad, but it's the concept of understanding what's in your package.
Yeah. Right. And a lot of people don't realize that loans are financial aid. They see loan and think that that's not aid because it's not free. But for me, loans are how I got a college degree. If I didn't have student loans, I wouldn't have a 4-year degree. And being able to take my personal experience and really share that with students and families and being very transparent. I'm very open to how much I have in student loan debt and really getting them to understand the ins and outs of all the different loan options that are out there and how they all work independently is something that I can speak from the heart, because for me, this is where I'll brag on UNC, because when I got my financial aid award from Lynchburg College, I do not regret where I went. Let me preface by this. It was worth my debt. I'm where I am now because of where I went. So I don't take any of that back. But I wish that I would have had more knowledge back then. I wish I would have applied to more schools. I only applied to 3. And I wish I would have had more. If you don't know, Lynchburg is private. So I paid about what I would pay for an out-of-state school for an in-state school. Typically, private schools are in-state and out-of-state are the exact same price.
Right.
Which is kind of like a little ticket item for some people, especially if you're looking from out-of-state. You're like, oh, I get the same rate as an in-state person. But for me, my financial aid award, yes, I got a very nice scholarship. I want to say it was like between $13,000 and $20,000 a year. But when your cost of attendance is $50-some thousand, like you just see 20,000 and be like, wow, I got a great scholarship.
And before you keep going, just so I don't forget it, what is cost of attendance? What does that mean?
Cost of attendance, I could spend forever talking about this, but it is a number of numerous things that are built into a budget. Essentially, a cost of attendance is just a budget. We are federally mandated to have certain things in the cost of attendance. So,
and that's not just how much it costs to go to school.
No, your cost of attendance is not your bill.
Okay.
If I can have you walk away from this conversation with nothing else, your cost of attendance is not your bill for most schools. Typically, you're going to see housing and meal plans and miscellaneous and loan fees and books and supplies and travel and all these things built into that cost of attendance that, depending on your circumstance, you might not actually be being charged for. So say you're a first year student, right? Obviously, you're going to be charged for tuition and fees, right? And then say, being a first year, you have to live on campus. So you're going to be charged for housing. If you're living on campus, you probably are going to have a meal plan. So out of the, 6, 7 things that I just listed, only 4 of those you're being charged for directly through the university. Now, every school's billing is their own thing, but I can speak for UNC specifically and just from my own personal experience. I was never billed for travel. Obviously, that's something that is built into a budget. So when you're figuring out how much it costs to go to school is how you should look at a cost of attendance. Not what I'm paying that school. How much might it cost me to go to this university?
So for me, I look at it, which I kind of I understand what you're saying. What I used to get tripped up on is you just do the quick Google search, and you see tuition and fees, or tuition, room and board. That's like the broad term, and you think, okay, tuition, room and board. You know what the Google search says is $15,000. All right, I just need to get $15,000 and go to school. That's not necessarily true.
Right. That's what the school's going to bill you for. But that's why you have a cost of attendance.
So you can figure out the other factors of how much it costs to go into it. Okay.
And every school kind of like manages that a little bit differently numbers wise.
But the concept is
right.
Yeah.
We do a cost of attendance survey to all of our current students every year. So they report what they spend on X, Y, and Z throughout the survey. We pull all of those numbers together, and that's how we make updates to housing. Like for this upcoming year, our housing budget increased. To help accommodate for how expensive it is to live around these days. If the meal plans or the, we budget for a standard double occupancy dorm, so your very standard dorm. If that goes up with the housing people at the university, we're going to match that.
You're going to match it. Yeah.
Right. So
yeah.
keeping all of that in mind, but your cost of attendance is truly a budget of what it might take to go to school for a year.
Okay. All right. And once again, I just always want to say, hey, we got a couple more minutes left. If you want to get in on this conversation, the phone lines are still wide open. We got them open for about another 10 minutes, 15 if we're stretching it. About 10 minutes, we're going to keep them open. That phone number is 919-899-9305. That's 919-899-9305. If you're just joining us on YouTube or on Facebook, I appreciate you. If you've been listening, I appreciate you as well. We're just getting the video feed up. I had to press a couple buttons over here, but the video feed is working. The audio should be cleaned up and we're ready to rock and roll. We got about 15 more minutes of clean, good radio happening. We got Miss Marissa Bryant in here. We're just talking about financial aid, going to school and our different experiences and how it can be possible, and just some terms that kind of get thrown around that we take for granted that, you know, some people might not know if they haven't gone through this process before, or it was 40 years ago when they went to school and now they're having to do it again for their kid and they don't know where to start. I think that's a reality.
Oh, I hear that all the
Yeah,
time.
we were talking about earlier about, you know, coming from an industrial kind of situation, but you could be coming from, you know, people who are college educated, but they went to school in the 80s.
Completely different these days.
Completely different, and they're just as lost as anybody else would be. And so that's why we're having the show, is just kind of just talking about this, opening up the conversation. I'm not well versed on this, so it's April right now, and what high school students are about to start graduating, you know, so if you're a senior, do you still have time, you know, runway to try to get into school, or is that whole period over?
The admissions process just depends on, some schools have rolling admission, means that they don't really have deadlines. You can kind of apply at any part of the year. And a lot of universities have strict deadlines. So for Chapel Hill, that has been closed for a long time.
So if you're trying to go in the fall, you should have already been applied.
Yeah, and I think you've actually missed out for spring enrollment too. I don't work in admissions, so if you're really curious on our deadlines, please go to UNC admissions website, because I cannot confirm that 100%. But I am pretty positive that they had to apply by February.
Okay, so that's admissions.
The following spring.
That's admissions. But the FAFSA, if we're just talking about Chapel Hill, and then we'll kind of broaden it out, but just Chapel Hill, the FAFSA is still open, though. You can still get money. So if you're admitted to a school right now and you're going in the fall, you can still figure out how to find money.
Oh, absolutely. Right now, you're probably, if you were one of the lucky few that didn't have any issues with the FAFSA, God bless you. But if you were one of the ones that, or one of the millions, let me preface that, one of millions, that have had issues with this new FAFSA. I think it's called Better FAFSA, Better Future now. The FAFSA has been completely revamped. It's part of the FAFSA Simplification Act that went into Congress a few years ago that finally got passed to
simplify.
Be happening. The goal was to make the application simpler. I don't know if you ever did your FAFSA independently, but I was always the one who completed mine. My parents would just give me their information, I'd log in, I'd fill it all in, and I'd submit it by myself. That's not how it works anymore. So the student will complete their section now, and they'll put an email in for their parent. Their parent will get an email to fill out their section independently, and they'll sign and consent for their tax data to be transferred over straight from the IRS, which is not different than before. The process to getting there now is different.
Gotcha.
And in it's called the federal tax. I'm blanking. You think I talk about this every day? Anyways, but basically it's protecting, like you're giving consent for your tax data to be transferred over.
Gotcha.
Which was the same thing as the direct data exchange, but this FTI is supposed to be way better. Because I don't know if you've ever used the DDX before, but it was the DDX is direct data exchange.
Data exchange. Okay.
That's the new name for the DRT, which was the data retrieval tool, which was in the previous FAFSA.
Gotcha.
So I was saying the right. We have so many things these days that when you talk about it on like a large platform, it kind of all blends.
Yeah.
And not to be confusing either is really hard when you have ABC and EFG and HJK everywhere. So, but that has changed. So hopefully that will, we won't get into the topic of verification, but that's hopefully there to eliminate some verification pieces that come from the Department of Ed, which makes my job 10 times easier. And makes everyone that is trying to get financial aid a lot less stressed, because there's additional documentation that comes with that they have to get to us, that I have to review and make changes or whatever. But yes, the FAFSA is different. Many people do not have financial aid awards right now. And if you do, you're probably going to a private school or have a school that has just decided, well, we're going to fund it regardless of what the FAFSA says.
Gotcha.
While we meet 100% of need, which is one in very few schools in the entire country, we don't have funding for that to just manage all of that without any kind of federal help. So that's not something that we're able to do. So typically students, when they get admitted to the university, they'll get their financial aid award at the same time. And
Gotcha. Oh, okay.
none of these students have a financial aid award right now.
Understood.
We did end up doing like estimated offers based on the CSS profile, but that doesn't include any kind of like Pell eligibility or anything like that from the FAFSA. So a lot of question marks, and something that, you know, I just ask is please be patient with your financial aid people. This is completely new for us. And we know that you have deadlines and that, you know, you're trying to figure out where to go. And like we said at the beginning of the show, money is a huge deciding factor on where you're going to go to college. And we're trying. Everywhere is trying. And, you know, the Department of Ed is trying to do what they can to make everything a little bit easier, but try again next year because we're not easy yet. So
yeah. So out of that is patience.
Yes, please.
Patience with your financial aid. You know, so if you're in school, going to school, that kind of thing, and you're trying to figure out your money situation for school, and you're having to call the financial aid departments pretty much around the country at this point. If you're calling them, just know that, you know, some answers might not be there right now. But they're going to work and try to figure things out and help you figure it out.
Yep. And, you know, when...
Oh, sounds like we might have a caller calling in right now. Stand by, caller. Hello, this is Cameron with the RDU Live Show. Who am I speaking with?
Hi, this is your mother. This is Marissa McCarty. How are you?
Doing pretty good, mother. How's it going? Thank you for calling.
Well, you're welcome. You're welcome. Well, I just had a question that I kind of know the answer, but I just think it would be a good clarification. Marissa said that they were one school that meets 100% of need. What exactly does that mean?
Yeah, so need is calculated different at every school. The way we do it at Chapel Hill is we take that total cost of attendance number, and then what used to be the EFC from the FAFSA, the expected family contribution, is now the student aid index, so the SAI. We take that cost of attendance and we subtract that SAI, and whatever number comes out of that is what we will meet 100% with need-based aid, which would include, you know, subsidized loan, which is a federal work study if the student is eligible based on their SAI for Pell Grant. And then we also have like the UNC loan, which is a university partnership with ECSI. That's our lender that we work with. And then after all of our self-help is met, then the student would be then considered for university grant. So to give easy math, cost of attendance is $30,000, and you have a $10,000 SAI. You have $20,000 of need, and we're going to meet that 100% with need-based aid from the list of things that I just listed out. And those numbers can all vary depending on the ins and outs of what year you are and all of that. But that's the basic, and as basic as I can get without being specific.
Got it. Yeah, I just, you know, like you said, this process for people that may not know, or Cameron made a good point that if you've gone, you know, you went to school in the 80s, which would be someone like me, and let's just say you have, you know, a child or a grandchild that's starting, the process is completely different.
Yep.
But it is completely different, but also somewhat the same, but you got a lot of those acronyms and everything. And one last thing I'd like for you to clarify, if you can briefly, subsidized versus unsubsidized loans, because you know, that's a big deal.
Yep, that one's a super easy one. Think about when you take subsidized and unsubsidized. So if you can remember what subsidized is, subsidized means that there is no interest accruing while you're in school. And so that means that no interest will accrue on that loan the life that you're in school. Once you graduate, then it'll start to accrue interest past that. And then if you can remember that, that's how I had to remember it. I was like, subsidized, no interest, subsidized, no interest. And then unsubsidized is the opposite, because it's not subsidized. And that one will accrue interest at the time that that portion of the loan is dispersed to the account. So pretty much immediately after it goes out, it'll keep gaining that interest.
And that's actually a very big distinction.
Yeah,
I didn't understand that.
It took me a long time. I have subsidized and unsubsidized loans personally, and getting into higher ed, talking about them more, I found myself like, which one was which again? So I had to just start repeating.
The subsidized ones are the ones that you would want first before you go into the unsubsidized.
Yep, and those are need-based. So you do have to have need in whatever capacity that your university offers need or matches need. And the studentaid.gov has really, really great breakdowns of the subsidized and unsubsidized, all the way down to like what the interest rates are, what the loan origination fees are, repayments, all of that. So if you're ever confused, I put this link in emails at least once a day, because it's always nice to just go back and be able to like visually see too.
Studentaid.gov.
Yep.
Well, thank you, and you all are talking my language, but this is great information. So
thank you for calling.
Doing well.
Thank you for calling, Mother.
Goodbye, son.
I'll talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay.
Well, that was a caller. That was my mother. I've alluded to her before on the show, and especially in today's show, if you're just kind of joining in, I was actually talking about her earlier, and that she really did a lot of digging, around the time that my sister and I were graduating high school, and figured out a lot. Hence why she called in and was asking those poignant questions. And so kudos. And you know what? Since this is my show, I got the mic. That was applause for my mother. And both of us, me and my sister and I, we went to school and with relatively low debt compared, to what the average is out there. So thank you, Mother. So we're getting to the bottom of the show. Got a couple more minutes left. Actually going to have to end this thing kind of quick here. We weren't expecting a caller to call in that late. That was pretty good. So something that I just wanted to say once again is studentaid.gov.
Yep.
Studentaid.gov. What's on that site?
It's the same website you go to complete the FAFSA too.
Okay.
So any question you have about any kind of federal information at all, that's where you will go. They have a huge drop down. They tend to keep things very updated as well. So you should see the most up to date every time you go there. But anything from like loan simulators and like repayment simulators. So even if you've already graduated and you have debt, that is somewhere that you can still go to kind of like gain more knowledge of like repayment and things like that. So it's just a pool of knowledge.
Okay, so studentaid.gov. We got the FAFSA. We talked about the FAFSA, CSS profile,
which is College Board. So if you ever took like the SAT or anything like that, same website.
Same website for that. And so yeah, just anything real quick. We got about 30 seconds just to leave the people with something.
College is not for everybody. So definitely have those conversations and please make the best decision for you. And if it's not right for you right now, that doesn't mean it's never right for you later on in life. So
you can always go back.
Yep, you can always go back. Or you can always start late.
Yeah.
I see it all. So
yeah.
It's not attainable. Not attainable. I
would definitely ditto that. College is not for everybody, but if it is for you, there's ways to do it. Marissa, thank you for coming on the show and spreading this knowledge, giving your background, and having this conversation with us.
Yep. If y'all want us to talk more about it, let us know, and we'll set up a part 2.
We'll make something happen. I appreciate you once again. Hey, everybody out there. It's Cameron McCarty here with the RDU Live Show. We're here every Tuesday from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. It's April. We got a full lineup for the month. It's going to be a good one. So stay tuned for all that we got going on. We got a couple of the podcasts that we're shooting, we're putting out. So stay tuned for that. Check us out on all the social media platforms, RDU Live, McCarty Tech TV. You know what we're talking about. You know who we are. Look, it's Cameron McCarty, your host, the best host in the land. I know you know it. And this is the RDU Live show. And like I like to say, let's go live.